Good morning. Shoulder tension is real. You get this, I wouldn't even call it psychosomatic because it's not psychosomatic. It's actually physically happening to you. But it's just stress. You know, the kind of like, this stress builds up in your shoulders kind of stress. And it's like a muscular tenseness that just makes you feel uncomfortable and in constant pain. You're just like a dull pain constantly. So massages are really great. Really important actually in those cases. My shoulders. I also had this I was going through a real stressful, probably the most stressful time of my life, and I had this back pain that wouldn't go away, and it was to the point where I could barely move. I was just crying, and I got up in the morning. I got up at it's like 3 a.m. or something like that, and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was just sitting there in pain, and I had this task that I was putting off doing. It's mapping the outputs for all orientations of a USB Type-C connector to figure out what pins remain the same across all orientations. Because you know USB Type-C is reversible. And at this point I was thinking about doing a hardware connect, or what would you call it? Doing a hardware, I think it's a hardware matrix. Hardware connected split keyboard. And I wanted wires that had, or rather cables that had lots of wires that were useful for sending these signals. And USB Type-C was a prime candidate. But it did weird stuff, because some of the cables are the same when you flip and many more are not. So being able to detect if it's flipped or detect the orientation of the cable would be important to deciding which cable goes where. So I basically spent about 3 hours with a notepad and a multimeter mapping out all of these connections. Filled up a whole notebook page of it. Just sitting there doing mindless, tedious work, and recording the findings for like 3 hours. And after I was done, my back didn't hurt. That's when I started to realize that, like, this is mental pain, or physical manifestation of mental pain, mental stress. Goodness. So there's very much something to that, you know. It's one thing to say, oh, you're making yourself sick by worrying, you know, worrying yourself sick. It's another thing to actually do it. But the physical pain is real, and it's I guess it's just manifest as a muscle tenseness. But it's kind of weird, actually. You know, we like to think that the physical is more or less separated from the mental. Obviously, they play well together, but we imagine it's kind of especially something like pain is a one-way street. From the physical to the mental, it's just reporting information. You know, I report that there's pain here. I report that there's this tension here. But that is not the case, observably, demonstrably. Because you can think yourself into pain, I guess. Or, I guess, subconsciously think yourself into pain. I'm not quite sure how to... It's not like I'd be able to turn it off and on. But it's definitely something that is real. The other thing is, I was in kind of a fall funk. I had a lot of ideas and a lot of projects, stuff that was just kind of stacking up, and I just had no drive to work on any of them. and I would much rather, play Mario Tennis. But or play Mario Tennis for the kids. They like to watch me play instead of actually play. It's actually somewhat complex. Surprisingly complex at tennis. And I'm not just talking about the scoring system. Anyways, I was just like not getting stuff done, and I was talking to a maker friend of mine in the UK about it. And I was like, I don't know, it's just like just feeling off. Like, I don't know if it's fall blues or something like that. And I said, but I had this idea for the mic, and I ordered some hardware, so hopefully that'll get me going, because new hardware tends to get me interested again. So the day after I sent that, the new hardware arrived, and I started working on the code. And it was not easy going, and it was somewhat frustrating at the beginning, but you make little bits of progress. Then it all kind of coalesces into a larger leap of progress, and you're like, okay, that was good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. And I wound up staying up probably around 2 a.m., which is not good for me at this point, because I'm like, oh, well, I'm worn out and I'm not feeling creative, so obviously I just need more sleep, right? No, that's not the case. So I woke up in the morning, like, excited and thinking about the project, and then working on new things, and then jotting down new things, and getting stuff done, and like ready to go. And I was thinking about it, like, well, is it just a creative block? Like, do you have to force your way through the creative block? Because once I actually made some progress on one of the projects, I started feeling better about it, and it wasn't sleep, because I didn't get a lot of sleep. But it was it moved forward, in my opinion, because I actually moved forward on one of the projects, because I kind of forced myself, because I kind of made my way through it. And this is something that, I guess I don't really like admitting it, but there are a lot of, I do a little bit of writing, and I write when I can't not write. Like, my brain just has to get it out of my brain. My brain just has to get it out of my brain. I am writer. Yes, very wordy. My brain just has to get it out, so I write it out. And I'm like, okay, that's done. Then I might share it somewhere. But for the most part, it's just like, whatever. And it would be cool, because I do have some longer form stories, stuff that I'm working on that will, like, feel like people would like. And it's definitely publishable, given what has been published. Just the bar is so low that you're like, wow, I guess I am a writer. I could be a professional writer. But when the bar is lower, then you don't feel good about getting above the bar. I don't know. Is that limbo? Like, it gets harder when it's lower? No, you want to jump over the bar? Is it like a high jump bar? I don't know what kind of bar it is, but when the standards are lowered, the accomplishment is not as amazing or anything. Goodness, let's go backwards here. That, the writing, and the brain. Oh, right. So I kind of just had to get stuff out of my brain. But all the professional writers talk about is you write and you make a workflow, or you make a process, set up writing time, that kind of thing. You make habits such that you write even when you can't write. An amateur writes when he feels inclined to write, when he feels like he can do nothing but write. But a professional writes when he can't write, when he doesn't feel like he can write. Breaking through that mental barrier. And my thought when I heard that was, well, that's great, but, like, I don't want to force it. And, we're talking about what's true and what's false, but this is clearly the case, at least for the creative side of code development, or at least for my making progress on my projects, is you have to break through that mental block, and then, things start to flow again. So maybe forcing yourself to write is not necessarily forcing yourself to write badly or write in an uninspired fashion. It's just making yourself, priming the pump. It's getting the engine started, and you don't necessarily have to hold on to that stuff that you wrote. If you're like, oh, I'm writing, but this isn't up to my standards, but you can ramp up to your standards and then just get rid of whatever doesn't meet the standards. So maybe that is the case. Maybe you do just need to force your way through some of these creative blocks, some of these walls. Well, you know how you test this? Just try stuff. I'm gonna have to try it now with all that free time I have. So that was a good way to kind of break through things. The the mental blocks, I guess, the physical blocks. My shoulders. My shoulders are loose again. It feels very different. It's hard to do anything with the dull ache of pain just constantly pulsating in you. Need to get back to the gym. See, I think that I need more sleep, and at my optimal, like 5 hours is enough. I could do 5 hours every night. I should say I could do 5 hours probably 6 days a week, and then sleep in a couple extra hours, maybe 7 hours. Because if I do 5 hours for too long, it does add up after like a week or two. But 5 hours is doable, and then taking the weekends off is probably the right way to do it. Because if I do that, then hey presto, you've got more hours in your day to do things. More hours to wait at red lights. There we go. Do things like go to the gym, and some of this stuff is like it compounds. Because you do something, and then it gives you more energy, and then you have more energy to do more of the thing, to get more energy, and then it's a feedback loop. There's a limit, obviously, but if you can make the effort to get started, if you can turn the crank on the engine to get it started, if you can start ramping up the standards and other metaphors that I've been straining, you can get going. So I guess it's just building up steam. More metaphors. Okay. Forcing yourself to do the work, forcing yourself to get to the gym, forcing yourself to go to bed on time, all that stuff. Just have to do it for a little bit, and then, of course, the easier it always gets. I remember that now. I had like how about 4 months? 3 or 4 months of the pound the pavement until it bleeds mindset, getting up early, doing all the things, having a hard schedule, sticking to it, doing work in the mornings, work on my business, and it ran. I forget what it was. It was 3 or 4 months, but I got burned out badly, and it was not a good thing to do, and I don't think anyone's immune from that. I think you can probably go at 100%, run it in the red line for different people can run it in the red line for longer. You can more metaphors, max out your time and max out your productivity and max out your efficiency, I guess. Maybe not efficiency, but you can run at full speed for like a week, and some people can do it for a month, and some people can do it for 3 months. But at some point, you're going to have to take a break. So the optimal course of action is not to run yourself in the red line, not to run at 100%. It's to run at something, and this is actually Jordan Peterson. So take it with a grain of salt, but I think I've come to this conclusion outside of him. He worded it correctly, though. The pace to maintain is the optimal pace that you can maintain over the longest period of time. So if running at 70% allows you to do that, to stay at 70% for the longest period of time, then that's what you need to do. But if you can run 100% for 3 months and then take 2 months off, and that's what you can do, then that's what you need to do. You can't do the 3 months and then be like, oh, I wish I was doing a 4th month. Idiot. Like, why am I doing this? Like, oh, okay, I got to work harder. You can't do it. It manifests as phantom back pain, as shoulder stress. It comes through. So don't work so hard, lol. I mean, like, figure out yourself and work out a good work, not work ethic, I guess, work schedule, I suppose. Try different things, You can always, and I've tried a number of different things, and this is what, it's all kind of coalescing to me, and I don't know if people figure this out. I don't know, maybe 100 years ago people figured it out in their 20s, but now it seems people are figuring it out in their 30s, where they're like, oh, I'm beginning to understand that this is not a good thing to do. This is not a thing that my body likes doing. Or maybe 30s is just when your body slows down enough that you actually have to abide the speed limit. I don't know, it's kind of interesting.